Welcome back to Offworld, where we discuss the intersection of pop culture and space exploration. Today we are talking about Europa Report, the 2013 sci-fi thriller film that goes into the fact that a bunch of astronauts privately funded are going to Europa, the moon of Jupiter, to explore and potentially, hopefully, find life there. So this is definitely a spoiler alert sort of episode, but if you are like me and one of those people that spoilers actually encourage you to watch a film, then by all means, let's just continue watching and enjoy the discussion. Today I am joined by Bobak Ferdowsi, who is a spacecraft engineer who previously worked on the Mars Curiosity rover and is also known as the Mohawk Guy, and Vicky Vásquez, who is a grad student at the Pacific Shark Research Center and does a lot of awesome marine biology outreach. Welcome both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's fun to be here.
So we all watched Europa Report pretty recently. So I guess just starting off, like, what was your general feeling about Europa Report? You've worked on spacecrafts. Like, what did you think about it?
So I remember liking this movie more. Like in my retrospect, I was like, oh yeah, I really like Europa Report. What a great movie. Rewatching it, it was not quite as good. Maybe because the ending was like I already knew what was going to happen. But it was like I had more sort of thoughts about, oh, that's an interesting, why did they do it that way, than the first time I watched it. But I still enjoyed it, and I still get excited every time seeing spacecraft and the shots of Jupiter and Europa are all like just. I really wish I could go see those myself.
Yeah, that'd be pretty great. What did you think?
I had a similar experience where I watched it the first time and just kind of felt like it was a scary movie. And then watching it a little bit more closely this time, because I'm trying to look for different science things, and it was really neat to kind of understand a little bit more things that were happening that they didn't like overstate, like the radiation and stuff like that. And so once I read about Europa, I was like, all right, there's a lot of radiation there.
Yeah.
That's why they have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that like delighted me about the film was the fact that you can tell how science inspired it is. You can tell that they really cared and they really tried a lot. For me, one of the things that I really liked about it was that it was, even though it's definitely a little futuristic, it's not overly so they're not like in some spaceship where everything is super minimal and super white and everything's put away. The spacecraft, like, you see junk like on all walls, which is very reminiscent of the International Spaceship, and the fact that you just have stuff everywhere. It's not neatly put away in drawers. Actually, I've got a prop here from Adam's sort of prop shop, so to speak, from the actual Europa Report movie that I'm not sure if you know what this does.
So they got an interesting choice of characters, like IOPKL. I don't.
You probably zap some aliens with this or something. But what parts of the movie, I guess, like delighted you? What was there any specifics that you just thought this was, really thoughtful?
Definitely, but not delighted me, more like terrified me. and so like there's, it's a scary movie and there's like a lot of suspense leading up to it. So the second time around, because I knew those parts were coming, a lot of it wasn't scary. But there are two parts in the film which are like every marine scientist's like nightmare when they're out in the field, and that's the idea of like being lost at sea. And so, there's two parts in the film where, the astronauts aren't doing too well. And they do these like close-ups on their faces and just kind of like these slow moments. And that is my nightmare. So like the one where the astronaut is looking at the ship as it's getting further away, that if you fall off of a boat, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to watch it go further away, especially if it's nighttime. It's one of the most dangerous times to fall off a boat. And then the other idea is just sinking into a never-ending abyss, which can, definitely happen when you're out there, especially over some very deep water. And so, there's also a scene where, the astronaut is just sinking and she's just kind of looking around and she just knows that she's going to keep sinking. So yeah, those hit home really specifically because that can definitely happen in the oceans.
So dying in space, same as dying in the ocean. Like, not a really great way to go.
Yeah, don't have to go to space for that one. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so, you're familiar with Europa and sort of orbital trajectories. And so how does the movie actually match up to actually going to Europa? In the movie, the idea is that they're going to go on a human mission to Europa and back in 4 years total round trip time. Like, is that possible? Is that possible with current technology, future technology? Is it realistic at all?
It's a real hurry for sure. Even on direct to Jupiter sort of trajectories, it's a little over a couple years. But you have to spend a lot of energy getting out there, and then you have to slow yourself down once you get there to get captured into orbit around Jupiter. You can certainly get there very quickly and back quickly if you're just doing a flyby mission, and that is roughly a 4-year, I think, span if you're just swinging by Jupiter. But I didn't get the impression they were doing that. I got the impression they were going into orbit and they were going to stay there for some longer time than obviously, or now they're staying there for a very long time. But they were going to stay there for some extended period to do science. So that seemed a little bit quick. But I also understand that no one wants to see an 8-year montage of people's beards getting grayer and everybody looking a little bit more tired. It was within reason, and I think that I had some questions about various engineering or science applications, but I thought all this seems reasonable. I think, like to your point earlier, it does feel very achievable. It's very accessible in terms of if we had the resources to do it, the commitment, the money, the time. All of this seems like something we could do. So
would it be something that to do that you would just get a powerful enough rocket and go straight to Europa, or is it something where you'd have to loop around Venus, or what would you do?
So if you don't have a powerful enough rocket, you do have to do Earth flybys or Venus flybys to gain enough momentum to get out to Jupiter. I noticed that here they dock with the station, essentially the bulk of their thing, which is already in Earth orbit. So you've already lost a lot of energy because you're trying to catch up to something that's just sitting in Earth orbit, and then you have to get out of the orbit. Rather than, with our robotic spacecraft, we try to go as quickly as possible in the direction. Don't go to Earth orbit first and then go out. So that's a little bit, I'm willing to give them that. It's a movie. It's a movie. They still tried really hard to adhere to very realistic rules of science. And I kudos to them for doing that so well. But I thought that was great. I mean, it's got that kind of Apollo, sort of vibe to it, where they dock in space. They're going to rendezvous. They're going to go as a larger vehicle out, in this case, to Jupiter. In this case, one of the fun things about that launch is I'm almost 100% certain that's the Juno launch. That it's that they use footage from the Juno launch, and in fact, when you see their crew interviews earlier, I know that's Juno behind them in a lot of their interviews. So it's fun that at least they tied it into a Jupiter mission.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of authenticity that they didn't have to do it that way. They could have done any sort of green screen, but it was cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I guess for people who don't know, why is Europa super interesting in the first place to go to?
Yeah. It's as they say in the movie, 400-year story with Galileo. First discovering it, but what really made it interesting is a couple of flybys, Voyager and Galileo, where we really kind of began to see the potential for habitability. That there was this icy, smooth surface. That there was a magnetic field, induced magnetic field from Jupiter, and sort of the Occam's razor of it all is that led to evidence that there's very likely a large ocean underneath that icy surface. Which, on Earth, where we find water, there's life. On Jupiter, we know that the water is present, in Europa, we know that the water is present. We know that there's some sort of heat. Something is causing the surface to be smooth. There's that energy is essentially part of the equation, which again life needs. And now that question of chemistry, which I think part of its answer. There's definitely a lot of interesting salts and different mechanisms for the chemistry to work out for biology, but we got to piece all that together, which was one of the reasons why people want to send a Europa Clipper mission or send missions to Europa.
Yeah, so let's talk about the biology part of it. So since we've already done a spoiler alert and everything, so you see this, you see them finding these algae-like sort of microbial bioluminescent things, and then at the very end you see what looked to me like a comb jelly-like squid bioluminescent thing that is also radioactive and attracted to light. And like, so I guess, how did all of this strike you? Like, does this seem like very Earth reminiscent of things? You know, like what did you think when you saw all this?
So specifically that one moment where you like see this weird squid thing. So there's this well-known deep sea scientist who studies bioluminescence. Her name's Dr. Edith Witter, and she created this really cool device that had a certain light array that mimicked a jellyfish. So they take it deep down, it has a camera on it, and they see for the first time a very short clip of this, what looked like, I think it was a deep sea squid, not a species they recognized, very short amount of time on the camera that was, you know, attracted by these lights. So that is totally what happens when people are studying the oceans using video cameras and stuff. You get these amazing glimpses of something and you're like,
were they like violently attracted to the lights? Because you see this thing like essentially attacking anything with lights.
Yeah, so it goes both ways. Sometimes they are really excited and want to eat it, so then of course they're going to go aggressively. And then other times, you know, those flashings are alarm systems. So sometimes the reason you catch something on camera is because right before it was dark and then it's bright, so it takes them off guard and then they swim away. So then that's kind of the question there for some of the times that we see animals in the deep. Like, did the light just come on and then they got freaked out, which might have been the case with the undescribed deep sea squid. In the case with Europa, that definitely did not seem like it was taken aback. It was going right for it. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, they can get aggressive, you know.
Yeah,
they
like,
want that food.
Do you know, one of the things also on the like microbial side of stuff is that also like you saw they found this algae-like stuff that's on the surface, like that's able to somehow deal with radiation. Like, is there any, you know, sort of extremophile life, marine life that you find that is like really hardy, that you know is any sort of analog to that?
Yeah, so that was the fun thing thinking about Europa Report as a movie, but then just, you know, outer space in general and what you can find in these oceans. So extremophiles are sort of door into that. And the issue is, and I kind of was looking online just to double check, but, you know, from what I can tell, what we're seeing on Earth with animals being able to withstand radiation, like in Chernobyl, I believe they found that there was a plant that was able to adapt to the radiation. And for animals that survived the radiation in places like Fukushima, though, what they were seeing more was just surviving, withstanding it, being able to build up antioxidants really quickly. What they weren't seeing is thriving from it. Yeah. So what you see with a lot of extremophiles, like some of the most popular ones that people know about are the bacteria that are living in deep sea vents. So these things are thriving off the sulfur. They're not just withstanding it. What they're withstanding is probably the heat. They're tolerating the heat, but they're gobbling up that sulfur. And so I couldn't find any evidence of animals on Earth that are like gobbling up that radiation. Mm-hmm. They're just more tolerating it so they can do other stuff. So that was kind of the fun thing to think about Europa. Like, what would it be like if you
is there a term for this? Like
radiation?
Yeah, photosynthetic, you got chemosynthetic, like the deep sea sort of microbial life living off chemistry, energy from chemical. Is there a radiosynthetic? Is it like a thing that you?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah. I mean, you've got all these different extremophiles like around, and everyone knows nowadays like tardigrades, you know, and exposing them to the vacuum of space, and that they can still survive. Although again, it would be more surviving rather than thriving, because they kind of go into like a dormant state, so to speak. But yeah, so I mean, is there? You know, if it were to you, like what forms of life, either big or small, on Earth should we sort of be learning more about to better understand, like, I guess, the weirdness of life that could be in outer space? Does anything strike you as incredibly alien-like that we should be studying more?
Yeah, so the boring The answer is like bacteria, because this is where you're finding like lithoautotrophs, the chemoautotrophs. These are animals that are using inorganic material to create energy, and then they become the basis of the food web. So this is where it gets kind of fun, and then you can think about like, how did you get that radioactive squid from Europa Report? And that's where you can also talk a little bit more fun about like, if you can have a nice strong base to the food web, one of these bacteria, what does it look like when you get bigger? And so, you know, I have been on Shark Week in the past, and the show that I was on was called Alien Sharks. So pretty perfect. So definitely have thought about, you know, what kind of mutant sharks could survive in that kind of situation. So I brought a friend. I brought my friend's teeth. So this is a species I discovered 2 years ago. It's called the ninja lantern shark.
That's cool.
So you guys can hold it, look at it more closely. You'll notice the top teeth and the bottom teeth have different dentition. And so this is just a way to kind of think about what would a predator in a bizarre environment be like? Because as you can see, even though we were talking about bacteria and stuff like that, that base of the food web made something that might seem small, like this is not quite the jaws of a great white, but for that environment is quite large and possibly the top predator. So these lantern shark species can glow in the dark, and so that made me kind of think about like what, maybe that's an example of like the future advantage to radiation. You know, some sort of radioactive glowing shark
on Europa, pretty awesome.
That'd be great. And yeah, it could all basically start from that bacteria. Now, the other cool thing though, is we do have species of planktivorous sharks. So in that case, perhaps you wouldn't end up with a shark with cool top teeth that don't look the same as the bottom. Perhaps you just end up with a filter feeder. And I wonder if that might be more likely the sort of shark you could find in Europa.
And so plankton eaters don't normally or ever go after big animals or anything. So astronauts would be safer if they found a plankton-eating shark on Europa.
But they could still find something huge, like a blue whale size. Largest shark in the world is a whale shark, which eats plankton. So it could still be big. And yeah, safe for humans when we get to Europa.
I mean, Bobak, like my question to you is sort of, you know, not speaking for anyone else, but speaking for yourself personally.
Yeah.
Are you hopeful that we're going to find life on Europa? Are you skeptical? Are you like, how are you feeling? And sort of, you know, so I think a mission coming up would be hopefully in the mid-2020s. Right. Like, you know, how do you personally feel about like finding life on Europa?
I'm excited. I mean, I know that the Europa Clipper mission is looking for habitability, which is sort of right. We've done this on Mars in the past. We've built up the story. Okay, was there water? Yes. You know, was that water survivable for some sorts of life as we know it on Earth? And then, you know, with Curiosity, the answer was yes. And then that kind of lets you sort of start building the case for, okay, we should send a mission to look for life, and particularly maybe life that we think would have, you know, gone well with that sort of aqueous environment in the past. So I think Clipper is sort of in that same vein, right? The first step in the story of looking for life. Now there is an incredibly low likelihood chance, of course, that you always find something that seems implausible except for life. And you know, with Europa, they mentioned it a little bit in the movie as well. With plumes, right, you have this opportunity to sample something without having to go down there. So there's always a possibility to detect stuff in there that maybe, you know, that the most likely solution is life. I'm very optimistic. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna, if Europa is the end of the line is like, no, we didn't find anything. I'm not gonna be upset or disappointed. I still think that's amazing that we have this ability to look for this thing. And I would still be like, let's go, you know, to the next one. Let's go to Enceladus. Let's go to Titan. Let's go to all these different places. Because it's you know, it is a little bit of a lottery. I mean, I think life is a cosmic lottery ticket that we're all very lucky to have won. And I just don't want to. I don't want to be alone, you know, in the universe. I don't buy that we are. But I would love if, you know, in my lifetime I get the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I guess the only way to get the answer is if it's yes, right? If it's no, I'm still going to believe at the end of my life that somewhere out there is something, but it's just we couldn't do it in time.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So my final question, I guess, to both of you is, would you go on a mission to Europa as an astronaut if you were asked?
Based on how things went for the marine scientist on Europa mission, or Europa Report, I'm not sure I would.
You don't want to follow her footsteps.
But, where I go to school, Moss Landing Marine Labs, we have a professor there, Dr. Stacy Kim, and she goes to Antarctica, drills through the ice, looking at animals there. So maybe I'd start with Antarctica first if I was going to go down this route.
Work your way up.
And figure out what it's like to kind of do that from Earth. And if I can survive that, then maybe we'll try space.
What about you?
Yeah.
I mean, 4 years is not that bad. In my mind, if someone's like, oh, that's a 4-year trip, it's a long time. My biggest concern always with these sort of long duration human missions is I would 100%, like if someone was like, can I transport you to Europa today and put you in radiation shielding? And I'd be like, yes, no doubt about it. If it's 4, the problem is always, I think there's nobody, and I love my family, I love my friends. I don't think there's anybody in the world that I want to be stuck in a ship with for 4 years. And I just don't know that I could, that's the part that would get to me. Not the time and space, because I feel like, okay, you have some work to do every day, you've got books to read. It's, I get a little antsy. I'm definitely one of those people, but okay, there's a treadmill and a bicycle down there. I'm like, all right, I'll make this work.
Yeah. See, that's the part I'm not worried about.
Okay.
4 years gets me through grad school.
Oh, there you go.
PhD. Done. I don't need to talk to anybody else on this.
I don't even think you need an advisor in that case, because there's nobody else who can really judge that work.
Even better. No pressure. No one needs to proofread this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I would probably want to work my way up and see how comfortable I am. I am actually trying to go to Antarctica later this year, which I hope it will happen. But yeah, for me, Antarctica is my version of going to space. That's my extreme. I'm good with that.
So you tell me how it goes, and if it works out, then maybe I'll try.
Then we're all going to Europa, and hopefully we'll just not kill each other.
Do you guys want to see Jupiter in this? I mean, that picture
that would
of
be
Jupiter in the sky. I'm
amazing.
just like, oh, it's so beautiful.
That might be worth it.
Right before you die of radiation poisoning. It's
that
so
part
pretty.
might not be worth it. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being on the show today, and this was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. Sharks in space.
Yay!
Now I'm imagining sharks with little astronaut helmets on.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. It's incredible to have both someone who's worked on spacecrafts and someone who works with sharks in the same place. I actually want to hear from all of you. Would you actually go on a mission to Europa if it was only 4 years? Also, I would love for you to submit a lot of images and videos, GIFs perhaps, of sharks in spacesuits. That would be pretty fun.